Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving deep into the life of a man whose name is synonymous with freedom, resilience, and reconciliation, Nelson Mandela. More than just a political figure, Mandela was a force of nature who reshaped a nation and inspired the world. But who was the man behind the icon? What were the core principles that guided him through decades of struggle? Let's explore the multifaceted legacy of Nelson Mandela. Born Rolihlahla Mandela in a small village in the eastern Cape of South Africa. His name prophetically meant pulling the branch of a tree, or colloquially, troublemaker. From these humble beginnings, he would indeed go on to shake the very foundations of an unjust system. Educated at university, he moved to Johannesburg, where he became deeply involved in anti-apartheid politics. It was here that the young, passionate lawyer joined the African National Congress, or ANC, and began his lifelong fight against racial segregation. Apartheid was a brutal system of institutionalized racial discrimination. It dictated where people could live, work, and even who they could love, based solely on the color of their skin. For the majority black population, it meant a life of oppression, poverty, and indignity. Mandela and his comrades in the ANC initially pursued nonviolent protest, inspired by figures like Mahatma Gandhi. They organized boycotts, strikes, and acts of civil disobedience, hoping to pressure the government into reform. But the response was consistently violent. The Sharpeville massacre in 1960, where police opened fire on peaceful protesters, became a turning point. It convinced Mandela and the ANC that peaceful protest alone was not enough. This led to the formation of Umkhonto we Sizwe, or Spear of the Nation, the armed wing of the ANC. Mandela went underground, becoming a master of disguise and a symbol of resistance known as the Black Pimpernel. His argument was that when a government meets peaceful demands with violence, the oppressed have the right to respond in kind. This was not a shift towards terrorism, but a strategic decision to target state infrastructure power plants, transport links to cripple the apartheid regime without causing civilian casualties. It was a controversial but necessary step in their view, a language the government would be forced to understand. His time as a fugitive was short-lived. In 1962, Mandela was captured and sentenced to life imprisonment. During the infamous Rivonia trial, he delivered one of the most powerful speeches of the 20th century. Standing in the dock, facing the death penalty, he declared, "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, which if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." He wasn't sentenced to death, but to life on the notorious Robben Island. For the next 27 years, Nelson Mandela was a political prisoner. Robben Island was a harsh, unforgiving place. Prisoners were forced into hard labor in a lime quarry, their eyes damaged by the bright reflection. Communication with the outside world was severely restricted. Yet, it was here that Mandela's true character was forged. He turned a place of punishment into a university of resistance. He educated himself and his fellow inmates, studying language, politics, and history. He never allowed the guards to break his spirit. He treated them with a dignity they did not show him, asserting his humanity in the face of dehumanization. This incredible discipline and moral strength became the bedrock of his leadership. While Mandela was imprisoned, the Free Nelson Mandela movement grew into a global phenomenon. Artists, politicians, and ordinary citizens around the world joined the chorus demanding his release and the end of apartheid. He became the world's most famous political prisoner, a living symbol of the struggle for justice. The international pressure, combined with internal resistance and economic sanctions, began to weaken the apartheid state. Finally, in 1990, President F.W. de Klerk made a historic announcement. Nelson Mandela would be freed. The world watched as a 71-year-old Mandela walked out of Victor Verster prison, hand in hand with his wife Winnie, his fist raised in a symbol of victory. But his work was far from over. South Africa was a powder keg, teetering on the brink of civil war. Decades of anger, fear, and hatred had divided the nation. Many expected a wave of retribution, a violent backlash against the white minority. This is where Mandela's genius for reconciliation truly shone. Instead of calling for revenge, Mandela called for peace. He understood that the future of South Africa depended not on punishing the past, but on building a shared future. He negotiated with the very people who had imprisoned him, working alongside President de Klerk to dismantle apartheid and draft a new, democratic constitution. It was an incredibly difficult and dangerous process, but Mandela's calm and steady leadership guided the nation away from the abyss. For their efforts, Mandela and de Klerk were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. In 1994, South Africa held its first ever multiracial democratic election. Millions of people, who had never been allowed to vote before, stood in line for hours to cast their ballots. It was a moment of profound joy and liberation. Nelson Mandela was overwhelmingly elected as the first black president of a free South Africa. His inauguration was a powerful symbol of the new Rainbow Nation, a term coined by Archbishop Subenya Desmond Tutu to describe a country where people of all colors could live together in peace. As President Mandela faced the monumental task of healing a deeply wounded society, one of his most remarkable initiatives was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Instead of holding Nuremberg-style trials, the commission allowed victims of apartheid to tell their stories and perpetrators to confess their crimes in exchange for amnesty. It was a painful, often traumatic process, but it was essential for national healing. It allowed the country to confront its dark past without descending into a cycle of vengeance, prioritizing restorative justice over retributive justice. Mandela famously used the 1995 Rugby World Cup, hosted in South Africa, as a tool for unity. Rugby had long been a symbol of white Afrikaner dominance. But Mandela donned the Springbok jersey, the team's emblem, and passionately cheered for the national team. When South Africa won the final in a thrilling match, Mandela presented the trophy to the team captain, Francois Pierna. That single image of a black president and a white rugby captain celebrating together did more to unite the nation than any political speech could have. It was a masterstroke of symbolic leadership. After serving one term as president, Mandela chose to step down in 1999, honoring the democratic principles he fought for. He set a powerful precedent for African leaders, demonstrating that true leadership is about serving the people, not clinging to power. In his retirement, he continued to be a global advocate for peace, health, and education through the Nelson Mandela Foundation. So what is the ultimate legacy of Nelson Mandela? It's a legacy of unbreakable will, demonstrating that 27 years in prison could not extinguish the fire for freedom. It's a legacy of profound pragmatism, knowing when to fight and when to negotiate. But above all, it's a legacy of forgiveness and reconciliation. Mandela taught us that true freedom isn't just about breaking one's own chains, but about liberating the oppressor as well. He showed the world that a better future is possible, even in the wake of the deepest divisions, if we choose humanity over hatred and unity over division. His life remains a timeless lesson in courage, wisdom, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the life of a true global icon.